On behalf of staff, I'd like to congratulate you on your appointment or your reappointment, as the case may be, to serve on a city commission. Your desire to serve on the Los Altos community is commendable, and your donation of your time, your efforts, and your participation are greatly appreciated. As you know, great communities don't just happen. Great communities are a result of public participation and collaboration. My name is Andrea Shalamangos, and I have the honor of serving the Los Altos community as your city clerk, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work with each of you. Today's training session is intended to provide you with just general information on serving on a city commission, your roles and your responsibility, and staff's roles and staff's responsibility as they pertain to commissions. Commission-specific training will be provided to you later on by your commission staff liaison. To start this training session, I'd like to introduce to you, although many of you probably already know, our city manager, Chris Jordan. Chris?
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you everybody for being here today. This is a little awkward. Living in this virtual world that we are, I would find this much easier if we were all sitting in one room and could have more of a dialogue. But given the situation we all find ourselves in, this is how we're doing it now. So first of all, just as Andrea said, I want to thank all of you for volunteering your time to be on a commission. We know that it can be quite a burden on everyone, but we really do appreciate it. Your good work as commissioners makes our lives as staff members a lot easier. And it also helps inform the city council, so the decisions they make are a lot better and in better interest for the community. With that said, I'll just tell you real quickly about myself, and I'm only going to talk for a few minutes here. I've been the city manager here in Los Altos for about 4.5 years. Prior to that, I was a city manager in Oregon for about 10 years. And I won't go through the rest of my background. It's not important right now, but I have been doing this for quite some time. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, we are operating in a council manager form of government where the city council are the 5 elected members. They are elected to overlapping 4-year terms, and their role is as policy officials to establish policy, pass laws, regulations, approve a budget each year. That's essentially their role. And they appoint 2 people. They appoint the city attorney, who is Jolie Houston, who you'll hear from later, and they appoint the city manager. In my role as city manager, I then have the responsibility to enforce all the laws and ordinances that the city council approves. I'm responsible for all personnel matters, appointments, hirings, firings, disciplinary action, evaluations. That all falls under the city manager's responsibility. I act as the emergency services director. I propose an annual budget. I make recommendations regarding all of the matters that come before the city council. There's a few other things that I do, but essentially for those of you who are more familiar with the private sector model, your city council is essentially your board of directors who are elected by the shareholders, in this case, the residents of the community, and they appoint a CEO, which essentially is the city manager. That's the basic city council manager corporate model that we follow. Next slide. As such, the city staff has a specific role and responsibility. Our job is to, as I said, follow what is in the city delegated to the city manager, and also provide objective, neutral, expert advice to the city council and to the city commissions. Your role as commissioners is to listen to that advice, listen to the community, represent the community, and make your recommendations that what you believe is what the community wants to the city council. You as commissioners report directly to the city council. That's what the slide you're seeing shows. That I report directly to the city council and the staff reports to me. This makes it times for a little bit of an awkward situation, or it can be, but it doesn't have to be, whereby you will have staff liaisons working with the commission, doing your agendas, giving you their best advice, doing some work for you. You ask them for information, they'll get it for you. However, they do not directly work for you. They actually work directly for me, which means that at times, and this is very rare, but it has happened, there can be a little conflict in what a commission wants to do and what you want to pursue, and what I have the staff doing in terms of what the priorities are. I take my direction from the city council, and that's how I establish the priorities. However, we try to make sure that those priorities align with what the commission wants to do also. Every so often, there might be a little rub there. When that happens, I'll talk to the chair, to the staff liaison. We'll get it straightened out so everybody's on the same page. Again, that happens rarely, but it is important to note that your staff liaisons do not actually directly report to you, but they are there to help you as much as they possibly can. Remember also that your staff members are not political. They are not allowed to be engaged in anything related to the politics of the community or elections. So please do not ask them for advice about candidates or anything like that. They will not be able to respond to anything like that. So with that little brief overview of what I do, what you do, I'm going to turn it back to Andrea Shalamingos. She will introduce the different staffs and the staff liaisons, and then we'll kind of go from there. But again, I want to thank everybody for your volunteering for this. And in addition, let me quickly thank Andrea for organizing this, and Sonia Lee, our public information officer, who helped put the entire slide presentation together. So thank you, everyone. Andrea, back to you.
Great, thank you, Chris. So let me just briefly introduce who is in the city manager's office. This first picture to the left is me, myself, Andrea Shalamingos. Next to me is Trevor Marsden. He is our fellow analyst management assistant. We have John Maginaw, who is the deputy city manager. Sonia Lee, our public information officer. She's the one who has put these slides together and does many other things for us. And this is Angel Rodriguez. He is the executive assistant in the city manager's office, and he pulls us all together for us. Okay, thank you, Sonia. Could I get the next slide? So as I mentioned, I'm the city clerk, and although I will not be working directly with commissioners on a regular basis, you'll hear from me occasionally relative to FPPC filings and training requirements, which we'll cover in this training. In addition, some of the other commission work that is performed by the city clerk's office includes the coordinating of all aspects of commissioner member recruitment, monitoring and reporting on attendance and membership eligibility, maintaining commission rosters and membership history, ensuring compliance with training requirements and maintaining those training records, as well as ensuring compliance with FPPC filings and FPP filing records. Next slide, please. So first thing I want to mention, it may be obvious, but it's important to mention that in order to serve on a Los Altos commission, one must be a resident of the city of Los Altos. If at any time a commissioner's principal residence is no longer located within the city, the commissioner would become ineligible to continue on the commission. However, there are a few commissions, they're joint commissions between the town of Los Altos Hills and the city of Los Altos, and those commissions do consist of residents from both Los Altos and Los Altos Hills. Next slide, please. City council liaisons. So to assist with commission work and maintain open lines of communications between the city council, commissions, and staff, each commission is assigned a council member liaison and a staff liaison. Council member liaisons are chosen among the council, by the council among its members, and council member liaisons may attend meetings and may offer general guidance, but they may not participate as a commission member or speak on behalf of the council on matters that the council has not yet considered at a public meeting. Thank you. Next slide, please. So staff liaisons. Staff liaisons are carefully selected by the city manager based on the staff members' training, experience, and expertise. Staff liaisons work closely with commissioners to facilitate and implement the commission's work plan and ensure that the commission meetings and actions follow state law and city protocol. There are currently 11 Los Altos City Commissions. Since it's important to know what those commissions are and the various roles they play in making Los Altos the unique community that it is, I'm going to take a moment and ask the staff liaisons to introduce themselves and to give a brief overview of their commission. So the first, thank you. So the first staff liaison I'd like to call on is for Complete Streets. Jaime, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. So my name is Jaime Rodriguez. I'm a consultant with the City of Los Altos, and I help manage projects within the Transportation Division and also help manage the Complete Streets Commission. And we have a 7-member commission. And did you want me to go through them, or did you more than that?
How about just let us know what your commission does?
Got it. So our commission focuses on helping kind of turn our streets into more livable parts of our community. So specifically, they focus on traffic calming projects that focus around helping reduce vehicle speeds and turning streets into streets that are more walkable and bikeable by prioritizing elements around bicycle pedestrian facilities. And then our priority projects for the coming year are our Complete Streets Master Plan that's actually kicking off next week. It's been a little bit of a delay, but we're really excited about getting that project started, and that's going to result in a lot of community engagement for our commission, not only for their monthly meetings, but having probably 1 or 2 just community open houses every month that the commission will get to participate in. And that's actually going to result in, for us, a complete redo of how we engage within the community. It might actually serve as a nice model for other commissions as well. So we'll be looking forward to sharing our experiences and our successes and our adjustments with Andrea and the rest of the city staff. And then the other big priority for our commission is looking at how we track cumulative traffic impacts from development, not only within Los Altos, but within adjacent communities in Palo Alto and Mountain View, and seeing how new vehicle trips that are resulting from those projects are impacting the community, so that we can try and adjust our fee structure and our planning process to better make sure that those projects help integrate into the community and not cause significant issues. So that's a quick summary of our commission, and it's a really great group.
Great. Thank you, Jaime. Next, we have design review.
Can you hear me, Andrea?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, this is Guido Perscotti. I staff the Design Review Commission. It's a commission of 5 members whose primary focus is single-family residential development. And within that, new 2-story homes, 2-story additions, homes over 20 feet, and residential variances. And yeah, that's basically about it.
Excellent. Thank you, Guido. Environmental Commission.
Hello,
Hello.
Emiko Anchetta, Sustainability Coordinator. So I am staffing the Environmental Commission. We have 7 members, and the Environmental Commission studies and makes recommendations to Council on issues for natural and built environment, advocating and preservation of the city's resources, and looking for different opportunities to basically preserve the environment, but also to make it more sustainable. And some of the current projects are Climate Action Plan, solid waste, so single-use plastics, and water conservation, stormwater management, and community outreach and education. So more recently, the anti-idling outreach and education, and the gas-powered leaf blower ban were some of the more recent things that the commission has been able to really get to the community, and they are really passionate about what they do, and it's a great commission to staff. So I enjoy working with them.
Thank you, Emiko. Financial Commission.
Good afternoon. I am Sharif, your Admin Services Director, and I am the liaison for the Financial Commission. We have 7 commissioners. We've had a pretty stable group for many years, and I enjoy working with them immensely. They advise council on financial policy issues and promote citizen participation and make recommendations to myself, Chris, and council as needed. Some of our priority projects, obviously our biggest priority project right now is working on the loan for the community center. We also, the commission also looks at investment performance and investment policy on a yearly basis. They provide feedback and review the comprehensive annual financial report. We discuss the annual audit with the auditors. They help with financial communication. Another major project for us, let me see if we can see me better here, is financial communication regarding our unfunded liability. We also look at our operating and capital budget and make presentations accordingly. And one of our biggest things that we're working on now with our new financial system is looking at cross-commission collaboration and new reporting for the city, and just looking at the project financing like we talked about, and rolling either 5 or 10-year plan. And right now I'm working on a 10-day plan as we go through COVID-19. So I can't tell you what's going to happen on the 11th day, but that's pretty much a summary of the Financial Commission.
Great. Thank you, Sharif. Historical Commission?
Hi, yes, hi, my name is Sean Gallegos. I'm the liaison for the Historical Commission, which is comprised of 7 commissioners. The primary objective of the commission is to safeguard the heritage of the city by providing protection of historic properties within the city. That occurs through the Historical Commission overseeing the conducting of comprehensive historical surveys of the property, recommending historic landmark designations of particular properties. They also have the authority to designate historic resource properties, which is a lower threshold amongst historic properties. They are also responsible to review demolition plans, grading and drainage, or modifications to historic structures. There are various processes that they must follow, and that is done for both historic landmark properties and historic resource properties. In addition, slightly different than a lot of the commissions, they are also focused on improving the public's understanding of historic preservation. And so in addition to some of their roles of processing applications for historic properties, they also administer the Margaret Thompson Essay Contest, the Historic Plaque Program, and a Preservation Award, which also kind of connects to encouraging public knowledge. They also oversee the Mills Act process, which is a process to permit, or they provide a recommendation to council on the Mills Act process, which is a process to provide a reduction in overall tax benefit to homeowners in order for them to preserve properties that are designated historic landmark resource. And that is some of the overall objectives and process that they oversee. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Library?
Hi, this is Jamie Chu. I'm the staff liaison to the Joint Library Commission. It is comprised of 7 members. 5 of those seats are through the City of Los Altos, and 2 are through the Town of Los Altos Hills. And they advise the council on all matters pertaining to the city libraries, and this is inclusive of the main Los Altos Library and the Woodland Branch. And currently what they're working on, obviously with changes due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they've been working to just coordinate with the many various library groups that are in our community. And they're actually working to update the community on some of the newer, or I shouldn't say newer, but additional services that the library offers, especially during this time. And so they've been doing some ads through, with the assistance of Lolly, through the town crier. They're also working on updating their plan and reorganizing in October, since they'll be meeting with City Council in the late October, November timeframe. And then obviously staying current with all of those groups that I mentioned. Specifically, they are having representatives go to the Friends of the Library meetings, and then also with Lolly as well. So those are just some of the things that they're currently working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Parks and Rec, Donna?
Thank you, Andrea. So we have 7 commissioners. We advise, or the commission advise, the city council on all matters related to parks and public recreation, and shall cooperate with all other governmental agencies and civic groups in the advancement of sound parks and recreational planning and programming. Shall make budget recommendations to the council with regard to parks and recreation, and shall submit an annual report to the council. So in terms of priority projects, the PARC recommended the discontinued use of herbicides in city parks, joint effort with the Environmental Commission. We also recommended a commemorative park amenity program. I say bark because we've been working on dog parks. Successfully worked with staff to host 2 dog park public workshops in February. And current subcommittees include the Dog Park Subcommittee, Sustainability and Energy Independence Subcommittee, Halsey House Subcommittee, Grant Park Master Plan Subcommittee, Social Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity Subcommittee. We're very busy. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Planning Commission?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Biggs with the Community Development Department. I am the staff liaison to our city's Planning Commission. The commission is made up of 7 members that meet twice a month. They're a busy commission. They meet on the 1st and 3rd Thursdays of the month. They advise the city council on a lot of land use related issues, including applications that come before them for review, and a lot of the rules and regulations, ordinances, and policy documents that are related to land use. They're currently just started a process of reviewing and updating the objective standards for the city. This is a pretty lengthy process. We have had 2 meetings, joint meetings with the city council so far, and this will result in the development of rules that are going to be a standard by which a project must comply, or it will not be considered by the council for a hearing. We're also going to be starting the housing element update process. This is another lengthy process, given a lot of the state rules and regulations related to affordable housing and housing in general across the state of California, and all the new legislation that the governor has signed into action. So we've got a busy couple of years coming up, and we look forward to working with all of our commission members and helping allowing them to help us guide the city through its land use in the upcoming years. That's it.
Great, Jen. Thank you. Public Arts?
Hello, everybody. John Maginot. As Andrea mentioned, I am the Deputy City Manager. I have the pleasure of working with the Public Arts Commission, whose role really is to advise the city on all matters related to public art, also to work to bring more public art to the city, increase awareness of public art. And one of the big projects that really the commission is working on right now is planning art for the new community center, securing that and getting that ready for when the community center opens.
Great. Thanks, John. Senior Commission.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bridget Matheson. I am the staff liaison for the Senior Commission. We have actually 7 members. We have 5 from the city of Los Altos, and then we have 2 from the town of Los Altos Hills. It's an absolute privilege working with this commission. Their focus is on advising council on senior programs. So working with staff to help identify different needs in the community pertaining to seniors. One big topic right now is the isolation of seniors that are isolated. This is one area that the commission is very focused on, and looking at ways to help those seniors that are in isolation. Some other projects are the transportation, working on transportation. We have a refund. It's a, I'm losing my wording here. It's basically for Lyft, Uber, different ways for the seniors to maneuver better throughout the city if they don't drive. They also are in just the overall interest in programming for seniors. So they're also interested in the new community center and how that's going to play. But this group is an absolute delight. They're very passionate and a lot of fun to work with.
Thank you, Bridget. Youth Commission?
Hello, everybody. I'm William Wells, and I'm the liaison to the Youth Commission. We're an 11-member commission that, well, not we, but it's an 11-member commission that advises the council on matters related to youth interests, youth concerns, and the need for outreach services. We're just sort of getting our commission year started, so some of our upcoming and current projects include creating our work plan at our next meeting on October 5th. Our Women's Suffrage Celebration Subcommittee has been planning different events, including a parade and a virtual roundtable with elected women. We'll also be collaborating with other youth commissions from neighboring cities to plan different events, and we'll be exploring ways to support student-based programs that are serving the local community. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, William. Thank you, staff liaisons. Okay, so now that you know a little bit about our staff roles and responsibilities and a little bit about the various Los Altos commissions, I'm going to talk about your role and responsibilities as a council-appointed commissioner. So, but before I start, I wanted to let everybody know that all the information that you are receiving through this training is contained in a Los Altos Commission handbook. And following this training, the handbook, along with other useful documents, will be emailed to you. So, on to commissioner expectations. So, as commissioners, you are expected to become educated on the matters presented to your commission. Commissioners can do this by reading and understanding staff reports, by seeking clarity and requesting additional information and sending questions to the staff before the meeting. This will allow staff time to research, compile, and distribute information to the entire commission and respond to questions so that meetings can move in a timely manner, your time is used efficiently, and meetings are productive. Commissioners are expected to attend and participate in a minimum of 75% of the regularly scheduled commission meetings. So please obtain your meeting schedule from your staff liaison and please plan your availability accordingly. Commissioners are expected in their actions on the commission to represent all residents of the city and not just specific organizations or special interest groups. Commissioners are expected to complete on time required trainings and filings, which include completion of a 2-hour online ethics course and completion and filing of your FPP Statement of Economic Interest, also known as Form 700. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, the Statement of Economic Interest, Form 700. The Statement of Economic Interest, or Form 700, is a form in which certain public employees and public officials disclose certain financial interests. State law requires planning commissioners to complete and file Form 700. In addition, the city's Conflict of Interest Code requires other commission members to file the Form 700. These include members on the Complete Streets, Design Review, Environmental, Financial, Historical, Parks and Recreation, and Public Arts Commission. The Form 700 is to be completed and filed within 30 days upon assuming office, thereafter annually, and then finally within 30 days of leaving your commission position. In each of these instances, the city clerk's office will send an email with instructions on how and when to file your Form 700. Next slide, please. Ethics training. So the required ethics training is a 2-hour online course that must be completed in one sitting. A minimum of 2 hours must be spent on this training, and thanks to technology, there is no cutting class. The course tracks and prints on the certificate of completion how much time an individual has spent on this training. Once you have completed the training, please print out the certificate of completion, sign it, and submit it to the city clerk's office where your training will be logged and tracked. Again, you'll receive an email with instructions on how to complete this training, as well as notices of when this training is due again. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to touch a little bit on meetings here. So there are generally 3 types of meetings: a regular, special, and study sessions. Regular meeting schedules are determined by formal action of the commission and held at set times and on a regular interval. Regular meetings are where the bulk of commission's work is completed. Occasionally, special meetings are scheduled on days and times outside the regular meeting schedule. Action can be taken by the commission at special meetings as long as the matter and the proposed action has been listed on the agenda. Study sessions are usually a more informal platform for information gathering and discussion. Generally, action is not taken at study sessions. So next slide, please. Okay, so a few things about meetings, a few meeting components. So all meetings require agendas that have been properly prepared to include a brief description of the matter to be discussed and the recommended action. Agendas are required to be posted within certain time parameters. The staff liaison will work with the commission chair in placing matters on the agenda and to ensure agendas meet all requirements to enable commission to take action or consider the matter. Minutes are also prepared by the staff liaison. Minutes are the official record of the commission actions. Action minutes are the type of minutes that are taken, and they do not include discussion, dialogue, or specific comments. Generally, only the action of the commission is included on the minutes. Adding items to future agendas. Under the agenda section, future agenda items, commissioners, with the support of other members of the commission, may request that an item be placed on a future agenda. Items must be under the purview of the commission and consistent with the commission's work plan. Commissioners are requested to submit any background material on the item to the staff liaison for inclusion and distribution to all commissioners via the agenda packet. The staff liaison will work with the chair to determine the best meeting date to place the matter on based on timing to research and prepare information, staff availability and workload, and commission work plan and priorities. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, commission organization. Los Altos commissions consist of between 5 and 11 members. Each year, the commission members will choose a chairperson and a vice chairperson. However, each commission member has an equal voice and vote. The primary role of the chairperson or the vice chairperson in the absence of the chairperson is to run a timely, efficient, and respectful meeting. This can be accomplished by starting on time, keeping discussions to matters on the agenda, progressing or moving the meeting along, ensuring that all views are heard and all meeting participants are treated with respect. In addition, the meeting proceedings should follow Rosenberg's Rules of Orders with addendums that have been approved by the City Council. This is another one of the documents that will be included in those documents that will be emailed to you, as I had mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. So this actually concludes the points that I wanted to touch on. So I'd like to now introduce our City Attorney, Jolie Houston, who will provide you with information on the Brown Act, conflict of interest matters, the California Public Records Act, and voting, specifically when it is appropriate to recuse yourself from participating on a matter and how to do that. Thank you, Jolie. Julie, are you here?
Yes,
All right, excellent.
I muted myself, and so do you see me?
Yep, we see you.
Oh, okay, so I guess I say commission. Okay, next slide, that's the right one, okay. Hi, everybody, I'm Jolie Houston. I'm the recently appointed city attorney. I'm happy to be back at Los Altos. And so what I'm going to do is give you a high-level review of the Brown Act, Public Records Act, conflicts, and some of the changes to the conflict of interest rules that have come out this last year or so. And if you have any specific questions, then you'll be able to maybe ask me today or email me. But just as you know, Chris Jordan, the city manager, he spoke about this at the beginning of this session, and he was saying, yes, appointed commission are intended to serve as advisory bodies to the council and him as the city manager. And I know when I talk about commission action, this might seem really simple, but it's one of those simple principles that can cause problems later. So I just need to remind the commissions that you act as a body. So this is accomplished through a majority voting on the matter that's legally on the agenda, and the public has had participation. So this is where it gets a little tricky. Commissioners' statements or comments are not direction. If there's a motion made, it must be in the motion. And I have been doing this for a very long time, and this is the source of confusion at following meetings or later on, because you'll have a commission member or even a council member say, oh no, we talked about that, and we talked and talked and talked about it. And when they finally get to the motion, if it's not included in the motion, then it doesn't become the direction of the body. And so that body hasn't acted because it didn't make it to the motion. So this is just how I'm just giving everybody advice on this. This is the liaison, the staff liaison, the chairs, and the commissioners. One thing that you can do if there's been a lot of discussion about an item, especially after there's a motion in a second, to have the maker of the motion or the chair, someone restate the motion so you get all that important information that needs to be in the motion. And sometimes there's not an agreement of what is in the motion or what the motion really means, and it's better to have it vetted at that time when it's fresh on everybody's mind, and then instead of later when everybody's going back and looking at the tape and really what did we vote on. And so anyway, it seems like a very simple principle, but it is it's something to keep in mind, like a practice tip. The other thing that seems like it's very just a common sense item, but it does come up. So previous commission actions remain in effect until changed by a subsequent vote. And that goes back to the majority of the commission acting as a body. So if there's something that is in place there's been a formal motion, resolution, or policy that's adopted, you have to undo it in the same way. And there's sort of a priority. You can make recommendations on ordinances, but resolutions and policies ultimately get approved by the council. But if you're going to recommend a change, then it has to undo that ordinance, resolution, or policy the same way it's adopted. And it's called the equal dignity rule. So a resolution can't amend an ordinance, or a policy shouldn't amend a resolution. And so there's a hierarchy of these actions. The other thing that I want to say, and the city manager spoke to this, is Los Altos is a general law city, and as a general law city, it follows the city manager form of government. And what that means is the staff gets direction from the city manager and or the full commission acting on an item that is on the agenda and is part of their work plan. Okay, next slide. So the Brown Act, this is the act that everybody loves and everybody hates. Everybody wants to be transparent, and then it comes to something not getting on the agenda and people wanting to take action on it, and you know, we have to say no. And also Brown Act bodies, you have to have agendas, you have to have minutes, you have to comply with all of those government code requirements. So it does make things a little more burdensome. It does, you can't act sometimes as quickly as you would in the private sector, but we're legislative bodies, we're a city, and we have to comply with the Brown Act. So legislative bodies include the city council or the commission, and the basic requirement is that the city business needs to be conducted at public meetings. And again, you only consider items on the agenda. And there is a caveat, unless it can be added as an urgency item. And that would mean that there needs, and I'm not sure if there's really, I'm not sure about commissions, but this usually happens at council, where there is an urgency that there's an item that needs to be acted on, and it needs to be acted on before the next regular meeting, and it came up after the agenda was posted. So you need to make those findings, and then it needs to be approved by 4/5. And this rarely happens, and I would say it usually happens with a contract or a grant. All of a sudden there's a bicycle grant, or there's some sort of grant that we've learned that they've allowed more time to respond to it or something, but we have to jump on it right away. And those are those urgency items, and we just found out about it, but we really want to act. The other thing is the commission needs to understand the public has a right to comment on all agenda items, and you have the open public comment time, and that is for items that are not on the agenda. And what I think the chair and the commission members need to be mindful of, as what I found with these virtual meetings, is people are starting to comment at the public comment time, but they're really commenting on a later agenda item. And so we need to be mindful of the time and consideration of the other members of the public. And the public comment time is for items not on the agenda, and then the agenda items, you get your time. And I think with these virtual meetings, I'm seeing that has become more of an issue. Okay, next slide. So a meeting under the Brown Act is very broadly defined, and it means that it's a majority. So if you're 7 members, that's 4, 5 members, that's 3, to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item which is in the subject matter. And it can also be a series of communications of any kind, directly or through any intermediaries, to discuss, deliberate, or take action. And this is, the old rule was you had to have a collective concurrence of an action, like a decision that you're going to do this. Then the Wolf versus Fremont case came out, and they amended the Brown Act. And so if you, as a commissioner, are participating in a process of developing a collective concurrence, then there may be a Brown Act violation. So that's why you have to be very careful about to whom you speak, and make sure that you're not inadvertently developing a concurrence, a collective concurrence. So there are exceptions to the Brown Act: individual contacts between a commissioner and a member of the public or staff, conferences, community meetings, meetings of other legislative bodies, standing committees, and social or ceremonial events. And again, that exception applies when you're at these other meetings, but you can't use these meetings to discuss and deliberate and try to develop a concurrence of an opinion or a decision while at these meetings. So some people, oh, someone just asked me, okay, I got a little text here. Anyway, so some cities or local agencies say that they have the no huddle rule. And even though you're at a community meeting or a meeting of another body, legislative body, don't sit together, because it may look like, oh, there's 3 or 4 of the Park and Rec Commission sitting at a council meeting, you know, that's a Brown Act violation, or, you know, and jump to conclusions. So that's sort of a general rule, is if you do attend another meeting of another legislative body, you know, don't huddle up, and just so the public doesn't get the wrong perception. The caution about standing committees: if there is a standing committee that has been formed, and a standing committee under the Brown Act is created by the legislative body, it has a continuing jurisdiction, it meets regularly, and it's not an ad hoc, it is a true standing committee with ongoing jurisdiction, as I said, meets regularly. Standing committees have a rule that if you're a member of the commission that created the standing committee, if you're not on the standing committee and you attend a meeting of that standing committee, you can only attend as a member of the public. So you may see 3 or 4 of your commission members up there as the standing committee meeting, but you don't go sit at the dais with them. You don't participate as part of that committee. You can listen and observe, and it is merely observe as a member of the public. And that is in the Brown Act. It's a strange rule. Some people don't like it, but you still can attend the meeting. You just can't participate with your fellow commissioners who are part of that standing committee. Someone asked me, what is a collective concurrence? A collective concurrence is meaning that you are, you and the other members, there's 4 people, you and the other 3 have collectively agreed or concur on an action or a future action that is going to be coming back to your commission. You are discussing how it is going to happen, how you're going to vote, or how you want to see the decision or the action to occur. And it's pretty broad, and you only have to be in the process of developing that collective concurrence. You don't have to get to the final, oh, we all agree. Just the discussion of it is enough. And I can tell you that, and I'm home and I don't have all my stuff from the office, but I do have some newspaper articles, and I always try to use something that is local. But I don't know if people remember from the San Jose City Council members voting on Little Saigon, and the name of Little Saigon, and what was its name going to be. Yeah. Well, they have 11 members, and 1 council member was found to have violated the Brown Act because 5 members had discussed it, and there was a memo with 5, not 6, and he ended up, and he was on the memo of the 5, and he ended up having a passing conversation in the elevator, just very general about Little Saigon, and the press news found out about it. It went to court, and they said that was enough to be a Brown Act violation. So very, you know, the Brown Act is very, it's narrowly construed. Okay. Someone just asked me, are you still able to take part in public comment for a standing subcommittee meeting? You're not supposed to participate at all. You're only supposed to observe. And I know people don't like hearing that, but that is the rule. Okay, next slide. I've got a lot to get through here. So how a Brown Act violation can occur is it's usually through serial meetings, and that is a chain of communications which is less than a quorum but results in a majority of the members discussing or deliberating on a matter. And so there's the hub and spokes, where there's one member reaching out and talking to more than 4 people if you're a 7-member commission, or more than 2 if you're a 5-member commission. And this does include telephones, cell phones, and emails. And I put caution by emails because that is where inadvertent serial meetings happen, and you reply all, or your email gets forwarded, and someone, you don't even know that it got forwarded, and then someone else chimes in on it. And I'm actually working for another agency right now, looking into some, it's more of just some policies and advising on that. And one of my recommendations is, and I've already made it, is some Brown Act training, because just from some of the emails that I've seen, it appears that there's not Brown Act violations, but there's just way too much communication going on, and inadvertent Brown Act violations can happen. And that's the danger, is it's so inadvertent. Okay, next slide. So this is what I was saying. Do not reply all, do not forward. There is an exception that you can reply all regarding the arranging of a time for a meeting, checking availability. But then I have to say that when you, and I have seen this, you're looking for a study session time or a special meeting time, and the chair's polling people or the staff liaisons polling people, and you know, I've seen these replies. Sure, I can make it, but I'm never going to vote for this, or I really don't like this project, or you know, there's no way, you know, I'm for this. You don't do that. You just say if you're available or not. And then there is another Brown Act, possible Brown Act violation that I see in emails is if you summarize a meeting you attended to a majority of the commission, and you may be on Park and Rec, or you may be on Senior, and then you went to Council, or you went to the Environmental Commission, and you want to summarize the meeting, you're doing that to a majority of the commission. And my recommendation is you do this as your report out at the end of the meeting. Then all of the commission members hear it, and also the public gets to hear your report out, which is important, that the public also gets to hear what is, you know, what you saw, what you're reporting on. And again, you know, I put caution, you know, the San Jose case, that was like the Little Saigon case. And next slide. I'm gonna, yeah. So San Jose case is going to lead into public records, which is important. So the Brown Act and Public Records Act are transparency laws. They're the state laws that we're required to comply with. We do have an open government policy. We don't have an ordinance. And there are some local agencies that have open government ordinances or sunshine ordinances that go beyond the Brown Act and the Public Records Act. And I actually work for a jurisdiction that has an open government ordinance, and we refer to it as OGO. And it provides for, but I don't think it would change anything in Los Altos, but you know, agendas getting out with more time, and 10 days out or 7 days out, and having the agendas out more than the 72 hours, maybe responding to public records in a shorter period of time. But anyway, and Los Altos, I know, looked at open government, and that's when they came up with the policy that we still have. So the basic premise is the public has a right to public records relating to the public's business. And those records or writings prepared, owned, used, and retained by the local agency. And there's statutory exemptions, and there's exemption for personnel records, draft, attorney-client, certain police records, appraisals, and those are just sort of the main ones. And the drafts exception is one that I think some members of the public can be confused why you wouldn't release drafts. Well, drafts are drafts, and they're not meant for taking action on, and they're working documents. And quite honestly, they're not released because they oftentimes contains errors or mistakes, and those errors and mistakes will likely confuse the public. So you don't want something out that isn't fully vetted by the staff and and you want it to go to council. This is the document we want you to review and take action on, and this is the one we want the public to see too. So that's the basis of really the drafts exception. It's just to avoid confusion. And trust me, if you're working on a large contract and there are so many drafts going back and forth and so many red line versions, it's hard to keep track of, and you want that last final best version out to the public, and then the public can comment on it and the council can comment on it, but you try to get the most final version out to the council. Okay, next. Okay, so emails relating to the city business or public records. And caution, this is the San Jose case, which was their email case that went to the Cal Supreme Court. And that decision essentially said, doesn't matter where you're conducting your city business, where meaning what device you're doing city business. If it's city business, it's a public record. And I've done a lot of training right after the San Jose case. I did training for the league, and we went through a lot of hypotheticals. And you can have a hypothetical of an email that is clearly city business, staff to staff talking about the new Walmart. And then you've got one that is sort of in the middle, and it's staff talking to staff about the Walmart case, and then staff's brother emails him or her at the city address, saying, hey, are you coming home for the weekend? It's so-and-so's birthday, and they respond back, I don't know, I've got this Walmart case it's taken up all my time, and I really, I'm really worried about the traffic impacts. And so then it's like, so it is talking a little bit about city business, but is the primary purpose of that email personal or is it public? And so then those are those gray areas. And then there are emails that are on city accounts or devices that are purely personal, and you really shouldn't do personal business on your city emails. And I know the commission members don't have their own emails. I think only the planning commission does. But in an email request, and if I'm reviewing it and it is just purely, hey, are you coming home to celebrate so-and-so's birthday, and it happened to be on a city email, I wouldn't release that because it's not dealing with the public's business. So the city, we come under the general rule that you have 10 days to respond, that you're going to respond. That doesn't mean you have to produce the records. That just respond that you're looking into it, or you will be responding. And then you can get up to 14 more days under special certain circumstances. And you have to state that you need more time. And what is a current practice, especially when people do broad and large records requests for emails, you do a rolling response, because just one item could have 1,000 or 2,000 emails. And so you have to review them and start releasing them on a rolling basis. So that's how it's handled nowadays with emails. If it's just give me all the contracts, that's easier than looking at all the emails regarding the contract. So if there is a writ or an action to enforce the Public Records Act, attorney's fees are awarded to the party if they prevail and the city has violated the Public Records Act by not disclosing or claiming exemptions that were not valid. But the local agency never gets fees unless it was clearly frivolous, and there aren't any cases right now about that. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Conflicts of interest. So conflicts of interest, the general rule is it doesn't mean you did something wrong. And it should just mean you may have a conflict and you should not participate in making or attempt to use your official position to influence a governmental decision if you know you have a financial interest. So how the Conflict of Interest or the Political Reform Act applies is there's the Form 700s, so it's going to apply to form filers. So there's a disclosure requirement, and there's also a disqualification requirement. So if you receive a gift, let's say of $50 or more, you're going to have to disclose that. And you just disclose it. Doesn't mean you're disqualified. The disqualification requirement comes from the different types of financial conflicts. Let's say the gift example. So if you received over $500 or more in gifts, and the gift giver comes in front of you at your commission, you would need to disqualify yourself. And that $500, they change it every couple of years, and it usually goes up about $20 every 2 years. So, or you receive a certain amount of income per a 12-month period, and if you've gone beyond that income, or let's say it has to do something about real property, then that's the disqualification. But there's the Form 700. You've got to disclose it. You got to put it on your form, You form 700, and then if it reaches a certain threshold, then that is when disqualification happens. Okay, next slide. Okay, sources of income, $500 within 12 months prior to the decision, a direct investment of $2,000, indirect $2,000 if you're a director, officer, partner position of a business entity, and that business entity is coming before you for some sort of permit or entitlement, and gifts, $500 within 12 months of the decision. Okay, next one, and everybody loves this one. It's next slide, please. Back to real property. Okay, real property. This is the one that most of you will face as a commissioner. And there's a new rule because they like to change these rules, and you just learn the old rule and you get a new rule. So the new rule is that there is a presumption that a decision involving property within 500 feet of an official's property will have a material impact on the official's interest. If the decision involving property 1,000 feet or more from the official's property will not have a material, that's the presumption. But both of these presumptions can be rebutted with clear and convincing evidence. And that is a very high standard of proof. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's up there. And so then there's decisions between 500 feet and 1,000 feet, and then you have to look at a number of factors. The development potential, income producing potential, highest and best use, market value. Would it change the parcel's character by substantially altering traffic levels, intensity of use, parking, view, privacy, noise levels, or air quality? So way back when we had this rule, and it was, I don't believe it was 500 feet, it could have been 300 feet, but then it went to 1,000 feet. And so in the middle, and this has been referred to over the years as the donut rule. So the whole of the donut is the 500 feet, and that's where it is deemed material. The actual donut is somewhere between that 500 and 1,000 feet where you have those factors, and then outside of that, it's not to be a financial impact or be a material impact. So we're back to the old donut rule, and I remember back in the earlier mid-90s, we had this rule, and then they changed it. They've changed this rule several times. So this is the new rule, and it came out I think it was last April 2019. Okay, now we also have another new rule. Next slide. So this one is beginning August, that should be 2020. So what you need to do is you need to, if you have a financial interest and you need to recuse yourself, you need to publicly identify it by, I have a real financial interest, I own property within 500 feet of the decision. You refrain from discussing it and or voting on it, and you step down from the dais and leave the room, except for consent items. But I recommend that you ID that, but for consent item 2, I have a conflict, but I will be voting on the general consent item. Or if you have a personal interest, and a personal interest would be a real property interest where you own, you or your immediate family own the property, and then you can step down from the dais, but you can still listen and you could actually comment on it, but you can't vote on it, and you should not behind the scenes try to influence the other commission members on their decision. And if you have a financial conflict of interest, you can't participate in closed sessions. That's more for council. And disqualified member doesn't count towards the quorum. So if you're disqualified, let's say there's 7 people, you're down to 4 people, you have a quorum for your meeting and someone has a financial conflict, then you're down to 3 and that item can't go forward because you don't have a quorum to participate. And you can't bring a disqualified person back to make the quorum, and you also can't bring the disqualified person back maybe to, you're down to 3 or something, or 4, and you need someone to, well, 5. Let's say you have 5 members and you're down to 4 because someone's disqualified and you've got a 2-2. Well, you don't get to bring that disqualified 5th person back to break that vote, break the tie. And if you believe you might have a conflict or potential conflict, contact the liaison and go to them first, and then they can contact me early. But sometimes these things you have to really think through and look at all the rules, and they're very factually specific. So anyway, now we have a new rule beginning August 2020, and public officials are required to publicly identify a conflict of interest, even if they leave the meeting prior to the relevant agenda items consideration, or they arrive after its consideration. And I have no idea why this rule came about, but I guess there were enough public officials leaving and not, so people didn't know they had a conflict, or you come to the meeting late after it's considered. But I never knew that this happened, or I've never really had this happen where people are kind of maneuvering around a conflict. But we have a new rule. So I really have to say I've never had to deal with that one. And then since we're all virtual now and you need to step down from the dais and leave the room, well, what that would mean is you turn off your video and you quote unquote leave the meeting that way, and you don't participate. And then you come back to the meeting. Okay, next slide. And I'm going to bring this in just amount of time. So the ethical rules. So again, you have to look at perception, and sometimes, not all the time, perception is important as reality. And the FPPC rules in the Political Reform Act, they are the minimum, and I say it's what you must do. And ethics are seen as what you ought to do, and that is your own personal feelings of what you feel you're obligated to do. Do you have some sort of personal conflict that you don't feel that you can or you should vote on something? And that gets into the common law conflicts, and that might be you have a project bias or you have a personal bias against the applicant. And I've done a lot of training on this, where what it's not a financial conflict, it's more of a ethical conflict. And where it happens to have legal concerns is if you have some sort of ethical, personal bias or animosity towards a project, or that you cannot be fair, then you should not participate. And that is to allow the applicant to have due process and a fair hearing. And so the applicant's entitled to a fair hearing. And if you cannot consider and weigh all the evidence and the information and the oral and written testimony that's been provided to you, and weigh and balance that and be impartial, then you should not you should not participate. And this is clearly in the lines of quasi-judicial type hearings where you need to make findings, and those findings need to be based on evidence in the record. But you owe it to the public and you owe it to the applicant that you need to be impartial. And then that gets into ex parte disclosures. If you've had an ex parte, which is a conversation, a meeting outside of your commission meeting, and there is something that you learned in that discussion that is not contained in the staff report, and it has bearing on your decision, you should disclose that, because you do not want to have, I call it like secret information or secret evidence. You should disclose that so all of the commission members are dealing with the same information. And then you also disclose it. So again, these rules, the public gets to share. You want to share that information with the public so everybody knows what you're basing your decision on. And I've seen on certain agendas where just an agenda item is, they have the staff report, and then sometimes it's right after the staff report, ex parte disclosure, or sometimes it's after the public comment period is closed, then they do ex parte disclosure before they start making motions and deliberating. So abstentions, you have a duty to vote. And if you abstain, you are counted towards the quorum, which is different than being disqualified, but your abstention doesn't count as a vote. And this is seen in, this is also in your handbook, and it says members are expected to be prepared, and Andrea went through what you need to do to be prepared for meetings. And it says need to be prepared for meetings and participate and vote on every issue before the commission unless they are legally prohibited from participation. And so that goes back to, if you have a project bias or you feel that you cannot be impartial and you want to abstain, or you don't feel like you can be fair, you can abstain. But the general rule is you abstain, and you abstain from the beginning. You don't participate, you don't question, influence your other commissioner members. You abstain at the beginning, and you don't vote on it. And there are some articles about this that in Western City Magazine, there's a few articles about participation and abstentions. So, and then I also have a memo about council members, commissions, and liaisons that I believe that's going to go out with Andrea's packet of information, and that gets into some other items that have come up, but it also cites to the Western Cities Magazine about abstention, and also just the interaction between council members, commissioners, and liaisons. So that's my high-level update. And as I said, I have done training on this where I have done 4 to 5 hours just on public records. I do a lot of training for clerks, public records, and Brown Act, and what's in the administrative record. So I can get into a lot of minutia and a lot of detail, but I know today was the high level. Yeah, so anyway, so I've got a question. What if there's no conflict, but after debate, a commissioner truly doesn't believe either a no vote or a yes vote is in the best interest of the city? Well, they should decide yes or no and make a decision. I can't force anybody to abstain. But I think what you would do is you would vote, you could vote no and explain why you voted no. Or you vote yes and say, but I still don't think this decision is in the best interest of the city. I would still recommending, thumbs up or thumbs down, take the vote. Because, especially if you're recommending to the council and you need to make some sort of recommendation, and you could say, hey, I went along and I voted yes, but I don't think it's in the best interest of the city because of these reasons, and so that's it. Are there any more questions?
Nope. I don't see.
Wow, okay.
I think, excuse me, I think John Corrigan had a question.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry. I realized I should have just unmuted. But just a quick question. I noticed that under the Brown Act, I can talk with residents about an issue, but it sounds like I shouldn't actually express sort of what my feelings are on the issue, where I might be headed, because then a resident could then share that with another commissioner or what have you, right? So you shouldn't really.
Yes, and that is that trap for the unwary, where you may say, well, I really like this project or this or that, and then that resident goes and talks to another commissioner and say, hey, John really likes this project, what do you think? And then that's through an intermediary that you can't control. What I say for commission members, and this happens at Planning Commission and DRC a lot, is you can say that you're supportive of the project, or you think that you're supportive, but you have these concerns, but you never tell the applicant, the developer, or members of the public how you're going to vote, because then you're going to a meeting with a prejudged determination, and that's not good. And you should be able to walk into that meeting and have information. People change your mind, and people bring up stuff that you didn't think about, and that's why we have these public hearings, is so people all get to participate. So you should be careful, though. Be careful. You can like a project, you can be supportive, but you should always couch it in, but I'm going to wait to the meeting to get all the information, all the evidence before I make my decision.
Thank you.
Oh, I now got a question. Oh, this one might be dicey. Can spouses get caught up in the hub and spoke violation? And yes, they certainly can. So you don't want spouses going and talking with neighbors of the neighborhood opposition, or talking with the developer, even though you're not. That is a little problematic. But again, you also have to weigh and balance that spouses have free speech rights too. And so they may not be voting on it, and they may oppose or support a project, and they have those political speech rights, but they should not include the spouse's opinion in that. They need to be careful that, I'm Joan Q. Citizen, or I'm John Q. Citizen, and I'm not speaking on behalf of my commissioner spouse or my council person spouse. I'm speaking as a member of the public. So, and the other thing is for financial conflicts of interest, it's imputed to your spouse. So your spouse or your direct immediate family. So you got to be careful about income to your spouse for financial conflicts of interest. And if there's adult children living at home that you're supporting, that could be a problem. But if they're living at home and you're not supporting them, you know, that's why I'm saying these things get so technical and so factual. That's why you need to talk to me sooner. So anyway, I hope I was helpful. And if you've got questions, you can take them to your liaison, and you can also ask Andrea. She's really good with the agenda questions and PRAs and conflicts, and then I can step in and help as well.
Great. Thank you, Jolie. I just wanted to mention, I know that the commissioners had received a lot of information today, and I wanted to mention that with regard to the FPPC, those forms have come with instructions that are helpful. There are manuals, FPPC manuals. There's also an FPPC advice line that I've always found to be very helpful, that you can call and speak to a person and explain to them your precise circumstance, and they will provide advice to you. I am prohibited by law from giving advice about their forms, but they certainly can give advice, and they have always been helpful and knowledgeable and responsive. And we may have a couple more questions. Let me just check.
Yeah, and one thing I do know, and this just happened in the last few years, but for another agency, there was a planning commissioner that didn't fill out his or her, trying to be neutral here, his or her Form 700 for a few years, and got, I think, fined, I believe it was about $3,000, $2,000 or $3,000. So they will impose penalties. So be careful.
Yes, it looks like we have a question from Yang Yi. Do we have a question?
He's saying he's talking, but for some reason he seems to be muted.
Uh-oh. Let me see if I can. Let me see if we can get him unmuted.
Yeah, if you guys can hear me, just let me know.
There we go.
We can hear you now. We can hear you.
We can hear you. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So I had a quick question about the financial interest within 500 or 1,000 feet. If someone holds commercial REIT interest, I may not know where those are sometimes, but they could be within the parameters. Am I supposed to know that and have to get all my disclosures in that way, even if the interest isn't 100%?
What kind? You cut out. What kind of interest is this? A condo complex or
No,
HOA complex?
Like a commercial REIT.
Oh.
A real estate investment.
Yeah, or yeah, a REIT like Santana Rosa REIT. I would have to look at that because it would be what part of the property do you have a financial interest? And there's rules about common areas and like for condo or housing HOAs where you all have a interest in the roads and the sidewalks and the common areas. And they changed that rule so it only runs from 500 feet from what you actually own, not the common areas. But that would definitely be one I'd have to do some digging.
Okay. Yeah, and if it helps clarify, it's kind of like the city doesn't view if someone holds a mutual fund and we're talking about Google, it doesn't mean we own Google. We just have a partial interest of it and it doesn't really matter.
And when it comes to Google and Amazon and like Intel, your unless you own quite a bit of stock, it's sort of looked at as a drop in the bucket. And then also Google or Apple or Intel would have to come before you for some sort of project entitlement or permit.
Yep.
And when I was at when I was at Santa Clara and they were going through the Intel expansion, we had to look at all the planning commissioners and council members that own stock and see if any of them had any, if it rose to a conflict. And then you have to look at, is it traded on NASDAQ, and what kind of, you know, is it going to be at a level that it actually changes income producing? And it's just pages of these regs. But I remember when I was at Santa Clara, we had to look at Intel stocks a lot. But yeah, we could talk about it offline, and you could run it by me, and I could give you a kind of an overview of what you need to look at.
Do we have any other questions? So it doesn't look like it. If you have questions later on, please feel free to call me, email me, or Jolie or your staff liaison. So thank you, Jolie. Thank you, staff. Thank you, commissioners, for coming. So this concludes our training program for today. So I'd like to thank you all for attending, and I'd like to especially thank the commissioners for stepping up to serve the community, and know that your service and your contributions are greatly appreciated, and that the time and the energy that you're going to expend as a commissioner will help maintain Los Altos as the wonderful community that it is, and help move the city forward in the direction of the community's vision for the future of Los Altos. So I'd like to thank you. And again, if you have any questions or concerns during your service, please reach out to us. We're here to help. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.